joined the Island Lamb, and I'm Diane, and I'm walking across the approachway for the airport, which is beside the Enchanted Forest. And you can see all the beautiful ragweed or goldenrod that's starting to bloom. I've come up to the top of this little hill to this sweet little red table, picnic table, where you could sit and have lunch or drink a water and look out at the approachway. And even beyond the approachway, it's hard to see in this photo, but you can begin to see the ocean. This is going down the hill. There's another little picnic table. You could come up here with your knitting and your coffee and have that beautiful view of the airport and peace and quiet until I think I hear a plane coming. And sure enough, here comes New England Airlines. This is our commuter flight that runs several times a day, and this is what you'll hear sometimes when I'm trying to film. On the walk, I saw some beautiful thistle. It was just a glorious walk. And some ladies' mantle or Queen Anne's lace. Look at these mushrooms. Lots of mushrooms. Just beautiful.
Hello, and welcome to the Island Lamb. I'm Diane, and this is episode 42. It's September. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to be with you. And I, as you know, if you've been following me, this is my favorite time of the year. I do love summer, but I love the autumn. I love everything about it. I know it officially is not fall, but we're getting there. I do just want to say, I want to apologize for the noise level in the last video. I think I was just so engrossed and excited to chat with you. I knew there was some noise going on, but I don't think I realized how loud and how annoying it was. So I've taken some steps to hopefully reduce that problem, and I won't let that happen again. And it just blows my mind that even with that, 10,000 of you tuned in to watch that episode. I don't even know what to say about that. Thank you very much. And any of you new, obviously there are new viewers out there, welcome. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that little bit of footage in the beginning, and I'll add some at the end too, where I took you back up into the Enchanted Forest. And you know, it's not just one trail. There are many ways you can go once you get up in there. And this time I took you on the Lafredo Loop, and I also brought you down the approachway so that you could actually see the airport. And we saw mushrooms and usually when I go up there in the fall, like in October, November, you see the brown pods from the chestnuts opened up. The deer have already gotten to them, but you saw the green pods. That's what they look like when they're just starting to fill out the nut itself. There were tons of berries. It was glorious. Up on the approachway, you saw those picnic tables, so people can hike up there and have a lunch. And it's fun because the planes are coming in and taking off right over you. And I can't get enough of that trail because, again, it's never the same for me anyway. I did the Lafredo Loop this time. In October, I'll take you up to Dodge Cemetery, which is a beautiful historical cemetery. And sometimes I cut across onto a completely different trail. So this time of year, the trails they're not that busy. There are still people out here on the weekend hunting for orbs. But for the most part, you can have a pretty nice meditative journey up on those trails. Okay, so what am I wearing? Well, I did talk to you about this in episodes 38 and 39. This is the Tora Rose. This is by Emilie Lewis. I made this sweet pattern in Purl SoHo linen quill. I love this color. You see there's a little pattern here. I probably could have gotten a little bit more impact had I used a lighter color, but I love this color. I did make the pretty cropped version because I did want to wear it with high-waisted pants, jeans, high-waisted skirt. I love a boat neck. I think what I would do differently if I were to make this again, because linen quill has some wool in it and some alpaca and linen, it's not really a summer top. I would say this is a spring and this time of year top. So if I were to make this again in that yarn, I would make it long sleeve and then maybe make it a little bit longer in a lighter color, and I think I'll probably get more seasons out of it if I had done that. But I've worn this several times. I wore it off island when I was with Mom this week. I've worn it out with white. I've worn it with jeans, so it's a really fun pattern. And again, if you want more of the details, it's in episode 38 and 39. Okay, so what do I have on the mannequin? This is a work in progress, and there's a little story behind this. This is a sweater that I call the boyfriend sweater. So 39 years ago, because my husband and I just celebrated our 36th wedding anniversary, and we were together, we dated for 3 months before we got married. So this is not the night I met him, but this was the day after when we had our first official date. And it's called, it doesn't have a very exciting name, it's in an old magazine by Sheep's Wool. I do believe this was translated into English. There's not a lot of fluff in this pattern. It's like you're on your own for the most part. But it was called the Circular Yoke Sweater with Embossed Pattern. Okay, let's get into this design. Look at this beautiful embossed pattern. Is that just not gorgeous? What got me thinking about making this again is I was looking at Webb's, the last big sale they had, and I got another email saying, today is the last day, and I knew I needed to order some yarn, and so I was just sort of going through all the different yarn choices and thinking about what I wanted to work on this fall and this winter, and I came across Donegal Tweed. And this is Tahki, oh, I had the wrapper here, but that's okay. This is Tahki Yarn Donegal Tweed, and I used the colorway Midnight. I've made, like I said, I've made this before. When I was on the date with my husband, it was in a soft green. I don't know where that sweater is. I have moved several times. I was living with my roommate. I really don't know what happened to it. Years later, I made it again in charcoal, and I actually sold that. And so I just saw the Donegal Tweed come up on the website, and I said, I need to make this for myself again. I've made several white sweaters. I have another white sweater I'm going to make, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And I just wanted something rich, and I do love navy. I think that this is perfect. And because the pattern is embossed, meaning it's raised, you still see it even in the dark colors. It's in reverse stocking knit, it's bottom up. This pattern was designed to be knit in pieces, a front and a back, and the sleeve, and then put all of that on and work the yoke in the round. I've made it enough times that I thought, well, why do I need to do that? Why can't I just knit this in the round? And if I had been really in the mood, I probably could have figured out how to knit this top down. But I knew how it was going to fit. I knew what I wanted from it. I said, I'm just going to go ahead and follow the pattern, because that's what I didn't even know how to modify back when I first made this. So I knit it in the round. I have the opening here, you know, I have got to, that's the only thing I'm going to have to do is close up the underarm, because I had to kind of figure out how to do that, you know. And I'm at the part now, what's going to happen now is I'm going to switch to a smaller needle, and I'm going to do a 2x2 rib, just like we have on the cuff, and we have that on the body. And just show you again, and that's going to look like that. And the reason I have a store copy is when I originally made this, I think it was a paper pattern. Just like I don't know what happened to the sweater, I have no idea what happened to the pattern. But when I decided I wanted to make it again, and I went to my local yarn shop, she had this magazine and she gave it to me. So the boyfriend sweater's on the needles. It's almost done. I'm looking forward to wearing it. There's a lot of good vibes with this sweater, and I think this color is just luscious. So if you decide that you want to look at some Donegal Tweed, this has got a little sky blue in it. It's got a little burgundy in it. It's got a little bit of maybe a cranberry. Their Donegal Tweeds are absolutely gorgeous. Now, this yarn it's recommended that you use a US 8 or 6mm, and I knit this whole sweater in a US 8, except for the cuff. I think that was in a US 6. So Beautiful, isn't it? I love it. Okay. Now I want to give you a little update on the project I was working on for my mom. In my last episode, I showed you a skirt that I had given to my mother, and she was having a hard time finding anything to match with it. It was lavender, a lavender stripe, a mustard colored stripe, an off-white, and kind of a mahogany brown. And so I said, okay, let's go to the yarn shop, let's find something. I'll make you something to go with that skirt. Because she loved the skirt. It's a linen skirt, it's got buttons down the side, it looked great on her. So we found the labienamiee raw silk, 100% raw silk in this color lavender. And I'm showing you some photos of my mom in the outfit, in the finished sweater. I'm gonna read to you while you're enjoying that, this little blurb from the pattern. This is a Jessie made design by Jessie Made Designs, and here's her little blurb. Swaying dropped stitches frame the edges of the softly structured tee, worked in a plant fiber yarn that provides airiness and drape, ideal for the long, hot days of summer. This tee is very feminine, it's very delicate, and I think of Mom that way. Mom is, I'm a 41-inch bust, Mom is a 34. She's dainty, she's feminine. It just looks so beautiful on her. And that color, that soft lavender, looked great on her skin. She wore a little white tee underneath it, or camisole underneath it. But she called me yesterday and said she had just bought a little lavender tee, a little lavender tank, and she thought it was going to look better underneath it because she's going to wear it to her garden club meeting next week. So I'm thrilled. I love this pattern. I will probably make this for myself at some point. But what I will say, if you decide to make this, remember the key feature are these dropped stitches. And you start, it's bottom up, and you start with the rib. And there's one row where you're going to identify by doing a yarn over, purl two situation, twice in the front, twice on each side, and twice in the back. Excuse me. You're going to identify where those drop stitches are going to be once, and then you're going to knit and stocking knit. So when you get to the top of the piece, the pattern's going to say knit so many stitches and drop the stitch. And you're going to want to hope that nowhere along the the time that you've had it in your knitting bag and taken it out, did the marker come off? Did you put the marker on in the wrong place? Because, excuse me, I have to have some water. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry, I just got a little dry. But nowhere, as you're knitting, you're not going to know. You're only going to know when you get to the point where it says now drop the stitch. And so when you get to that point, it's very exciting because you're just going to drop the stitch and kind of pull, pull, and hope that you got to the right spot at the bottom. I did every time except for once. And I know it's because the marker came off, maybe the stitches fell off, I put them back on, I put the marker on, and I put the marker in the wrong spot. So I had to kind of deal with that in a very long way. So that would be the only thing I would say. When you put on that row, put what's the kind of stitch marker I'm trying? A locking stitch marker every place where that's going to happen. So you're sure when you come down, you're there. Let's see. What else can I tell you about this pattern? It was easy. It was a really easy knit. It was really fun. I believe there was some short row shaping in the back and in the shoulders, and I do recommend it, and I think my mother looks just gorgeous in it. So, okay, where does that bring us? We've talked about the boyfriend sweater. What am I thinking about? Okay, so one of the things I identify with this time of year, I mean, I read a lot in the summer, but for some reason, probably not quite as much as I read in the fall. I just associate those cozy nights with a candle, and maybe I'm in my PJs or I'm in something really nice and cozy and I'm reading a book. And so I was thinking about the Book Club Cardi by Sari Nordlund as one of my next projects to knit on. Book club, this time of year, books. And in one of my earliest episodes, I interviewed my mom, and she showed you all of her knits from the last 30 plus years. And one of my favorites that my mother made is this gorgeous fisherman knit sweater that is in a cranberry color, very similar to this. This is called Hollyberry. And so I decided I'm going to make that Book Club Cardi. I'm showing you photos of it right now. I wanted a cardigan with pockets. I may make it a little longer than what you're seeing in those photos. And Knit Picks was having a sale on their Wool of the Andes worsted weight yarn, and so that's what I purchased in the colorway Hollyberry. There are 110 yards on a 50-gram ball, so you need quite a bit of this to knit that sweater. But I can't wait to get this cast on. So that's my next big project. So I'll let you know how that goes, and hopefully in my next episode I'll have enough on the needles that I can share how it feels. But several people have made this. I've gone on a few different YouTube channels, and I think it was Morgan Unravels, and she's cute. She's a young girl. She's a fabulous knitter. I started watching her. She showed up in my feed. I think it's Morgan Unravels. I'll add it to my show notes. And she was making it and has just finished it, and so that also inspired me to give that a shot. So that's the Book Club Cardi. And so speaking of books, I wanted to tell you about 2 books that I've got going on right now. I don't know about you, but I can have more than one book going on at the same time. I like a book for the beach. I like to listen to an audio if I'm knitting something complicated. I like a book maybe, just a couple of minutes before I go to bed. So right now I've got 2 books going on I want to share. I'm listening to Kristen Hanna's Women. I'm not sure I'm recommending it, but I wanted to tell you about it. Now, if you were born in the 50s or the 60s or after, not too long after, you know what was going on in the 60s, and primarily Vietnam. So this is historical fiction. It's being told to you by a young woman who grew up a pretty privileged life on Coronado Island in California, San Diego, before there was a bridge, when you had to take a ferry from the island to the mainland, and a pretty privileged family, country club situation. When her brother went to Vietnam, their parents gave a going away party. When she decided to go and didn't tell her parents until she enlisted, when she came home to tell them, they were absolutely devastated. She was supposed to finish school and get married. And so that just gives you a little feel for what was going on with, equality of the sexes. And then her experience trying to finish nursing school in this country, and which branch would accept her without any experience. That's how the book starts. It can be gruesome. It's going to be gruesome at times because you're going to be right there it's very reminiscent of the series MASH. It is beautifully written. I'm enjoying listening to it. It's tough. But I think for me anyway, I was born in 1960. I remember as a young girl sitting around the dinner table. My parents had a little TV that they had on during that time because we were watching the MIA count, the missing in action count, the POW count, listening to what was going on, a lot of misinformation. So I just, I'm glad I'm reading it. I'm about halfway through it. On the completely different end of the spectrum, I'm also reading a book by Paula Hawkins, and I don't know if you read The Girl on the Train or you saw the movie. It became a movie. It was a best-selling book. Is A Slow Fire Burning. I'm about halfway through. Psychological thriller, murder, whodunit, a lot of character develop in the beginning. Let me know if you've read it. And what you think. I'm gonna persevere. It was a little tricky. Like I said, a lot of character development so far, but it had good reviews. Okay, so what am I thinking about? Oh, I'm thinking about tea and apples and leaves falling and fires and knitting. So I mentioned to you in the last episode that I want to do a whole thing on Lopi and Icelandic knits, and I showed you some of my Icelandic books. Well, I have narrowed down the sweater I'm going to make. This is not that episode, but I did want you to see the sweater that I chose. I've made this before. I sold it. The minute I sold it, I knew I shouldn't have sold it, but I also knew I could make it again. This is called the Katinka the Katinka. Not traditional in the way, it's not your average, you know, a lot of the yokes are very traditional. I think this is a little modern. It does say an unusual motif, decorative stitching, and also you can make the hat. So, and it has some blanket stitching on it. I bought the yarn. This is the Lopi yarn, and these are my colors. So that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about putting together that podcast for you, going through my old photos and finding all of the most of the sweaters I've made, and then get this on the needles and talk to you about Icelandic knits, a little bit of the history and a little bit of the yarn. So that's what I'm thinking about. I have my Cardi, I have my Lopi. I'm going to finish this. I've got some socks I want to talk to you about, some sock yarn I want to talk to you about. So I don't know if you've tried this brand. It's Opal. And I've used Opal before quite a bit. But this is a series they're doing called the Vincent van Gogh series. And these yarns, these yarn colors are, like this is the sunflower painting by Vincent van Gogh. I mean, is that just gorgeous? Oh, I've got one finished. Look at that. Look at that sunflower sock. And the yarn is beautiful. It is, you know, it has some nylon in it. I did my heel flap. I love when the yarn, I can get matchy. I like it when my socks match. I've, you know, occasionally haven't been able to make that happen, and I have to say, okay, can't be perfect, Diane, it's okay. But boy, I do get a lot of joy out of when it matches. So I just turned the heel on the second sock, and I'll get those finished. And this color here, what painting are we referencing here? Here it is, here's the painting. So this is Opal. This is the Vincent van Gogh collection. I bought it on Amazon, and there are 425 meters on a 100-gram ball, so you're going to get 2 socks. What I have found with all these big balls is go ahead and make your leg nice and long, because you're going to have plenty of yarn. I'm a size 8 shoe, and I'll still have some yarn left over. If I'm making this for my husband, who's a 10, you know, I'll be a little bit more careful about how long I make the leg, because I know I'm going to have a bigger foot. But for, you know, for a woman's size, you can really get a nice, so this is going to be great like in my boots, because I love when I wear my hiking boot and I can still see some of my socks sticking out. I've been on a sock roll. This is the Regia. I love that Regia yarn. This is the self-patterning, and I finished those, let's see, where are they? I finished those little seasonal ones I was telling you about. So I'm stockpiling my socks. Some will be for me, some will be for gifts. I bought another Regia in the, you know, my happy colors. I did get some of the Patton's Croy sock yarn by Yarnspirations in a solid color. And I have some beautiful sock patterns that have some little cables or some lace work, some textured work. So I think I might make a pair for myself of something a little bit more dainty, maybe with a little picot edging. One last thing I'm thinking about. When I made the fern sweater, and see if you can remember the fern sweater. This was the Knitting for Olive sweater. I used, it's been in a basket, so it's a little wrinkled. But I used the, for the base, I used Moondrake Fingering Merino, and I also used the labienamiee mohair silk. And my yarn shop is fantastic about letting you get a store credit to return any leftover yarn, and they let me do that. But I had a whole skein of this Moondrake left over, and what I've decided to do, I bought some Charlemont fingering weight gorgeous yarn from webs. And this yarn is 60% fine superwash merino wool, 20% mulberry silk, and 20% polyamide. And I have a skein of white left over. It's not this, it's the same yarn, Shalimar. I have a skein of white left over. So I'm thinking about black sweater. This would be the main body, and either just using this for some color work, maybe a Isabel Kramer design, maybe a Caitlin Hunter design, maybe introducing a little white to that, but I'm thinking that. So that's what I got going on. I got a lot going on. You know, I finished the Ingrid. It's been too warm to do a photo shoot, so my husband's going to, as soon as we get cool enough weather to put something like this on and get outside, on not too much of a sunny day, do a little photo shoot. So that's why I think there's going to be another episode in September, because there's still so much. I'm just surrounded by it, and I'm just so happy about it. And I hope you're experiencing the same thing. I hope that you're thinking about some new projects, getting some projects off the needles. I just had a great conversation with Barbara, who you met in a previous episode, who I met, who was a follower, about what are our views on gift knitting. And so, you know, do you have some knit-worthy people in your life who you want to knit a little something for? Okay, I have to share a surprise with you. So a couple of weeks ago, I got a comment on my last episode from Misty. And Misty said, my husband and I are going to be on our boat in the harbor on Block Island for 3 weeks. Maybe we could get together and meet and knit together? And I was like, yes, hello, for sure. So I went down to Persephone's, our little coffee shop in town, and I didn't know what Misty looked like, but she knew what I looked like because she'd been watching the podcast. So I went down early and I made sure I had my knitting, and I sat on a little bench and, you know, had my knitting going. And sure enough, Misty showed up and we got our coffee and we sat, and we were just so excited to even just see each other, and the whole concept of how that happened because of, you know, YouTube, and learned a little bit about each other's stories. And without getting too much into Misty's personal life, a real life-changing decision they still work, and they work off from their computers, and they don't have to go into an office. So like they work from home, but their home is now their boat. They made the decision to, you know, sell their home and consolidate their things and buy a 45-foot sailboat and live on their boat and sail down the coast of, you know, the U.S., eventually to the Bahamas. And this was one of the legs. So as we were chit-chatting and getting to know each other, I had put together a little gift bag with Patty Lyons' The Book of Tricks, and some lavender for her. And she was thinking the same thing, and gave me some. Okay, so in several of my episodes, I've talked about how difficult it is for me to find the Knitting for Olive merino, and I'm not exactly sure why. I'm just going to try to get that glare away from you a little bit. I've been able to find the mohair, but I haven't been able to find the merino. And Misty had bought some of this for herself, and she was having an allergic situation, and she had a sweater's worth of it. And when she was thinking about what to do with it, she remembered that I had said I had trouble finding the merino. So I have a sweater's worth of the Knitting for Olive heavy merino in the color Sky Cloud. And I just can't even believe that. So Misty, thank you very much. I loved meeting you, and we were able to even meet a second time because they were here for 3 weeks. So the second time we met up at this beautiful Victorian hotel with a view of kind of what was a really churned up sea, and we sat and knit, and we had a chai latte, and we shared more about our lives, and it was just wonderful. And so a new friend was made. Thank you for reaching out to me, Misty. And I've been thinking about this yarn for quite, ever since I got it, and I keep, I'm bonding with it. And I'm thinking about maybe some kind of cabled, textured, rugged vest that I could wear fall into winter. You know how sometimes your sweaters just don't fit in your coat that great, but you still want that look. You know, I just made the Ingrid, and you know, that's a big sweater. And I thought, well, similar concept to maybe the Ingrid, or maybe something with cables, but in a vest. So that's what I'm thinking about. And reach out to me if you're going to be in the area. You know, if you follow me and you think you're going to be in the area, let me know. We can hook up and have a coffee together. Okay, I just wanted to insert that. Thanks again, Misty. So we're at Persephone's and we're having a coffee, and this is Misty.
Hello.
Misty, where are you from?
I am, well, from Charleston, South Carolina, as of recently, and now I live on my boat. So,
And this is the first time we've met, other than
the first time we met, so excited. I left you a message. I was excited to see you. I knew I wanted a new friend, a knitting friend, and here I am.
And so while we've been sitting here talking, you decided that you had this yarn that you've had in your stash.
I did. I dragged it to the boat with me, and minute I saw your podcast this week and knew I wanted to meet you, I knew who it had to go to.
And it's knitting for Olive, and it's the heavy merino. And if any of you who have been following me, you know I've had a hard time finding this yarn, so I'm like a little speechless. And you know I usually can get my words pretty quickly, but this has just been an incredible meet, and I just wanted to share Misty with you.
Thank you.
And finish this up with a little bit more of the walk through the Enchanted Forest, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.